Hello, and thank you for taking the time to watch this brief video providing an overview of the Technology, Broadband, and Digital Resilience chapter for the 2026 update to the Massachusetts Rural Policy Plan. In this video, we will review the context regarding rural technology challenges, recent progress made, and review the draft recommendations in the plan. Your watching this video now will allow us to have meaningful discussion during our public engagement meetings for the technology chapter. When we meet to hear your feedback, some of the primary questions we will have for attendees are: does the summary of this chapter's challenges, successes, and achievements feel right and representative of your community? Which of the recommendations would make the biggest difference in your community? And what is missing? The goal of the Technology, Broadband, and Digital Resilience chapter is to ensure rural communities have the broadband, mobile connectivity, and IT capacity they need to participate fully in the digital economy while protecting equity, resilience, and local control. Since 2019, Massachusetts has made major strides in closing basic connectivity gaps in rural areas. State, federal, and local investments, building on the Mass Broadband 123 Middle Mile Network and the Last Mile program, have extended fiber to the home or cable broadband to nearly all previously unserved communities and brought the Commonwealth to over 99% broadband availability, far above the national average. The Massachusetts Broadband Institute, or MBI, now organizes this work into three phases: middle and last mile deployment through 2021, a 2021 through 2026 focus on digital equity, gap networks, residential retrofits, devices, and BEAD implementation, and a new phase that focuses on Massachusetts achieving seamless connectivity to empower residents to thrive in a digital society that is being shaped by rapidly evolving AI applications and tools. Rural regions have begun developing digital equity plans to address device access, digital skills, and affordability so that rural residents can meaningfully use the connections now available. Despite this progress, rural communities face persistent and evolving challenges. In some municipal fiber towns, some households did not opt in during the initial build-out, often because of upfront connection costs or limited awareness of benefits, and many other rural residents still rely on aging cable lines with limited upload capacity. While MBI is expanding broadband access to more than 7,800 homes and businesses through their Gap Networks grant program and BEAD deployment grant program, there are still unserved or underserved locations that may remain without a solution due to ongoing issues with the accuracy of the FCC's National Broadband Map. Affordability remains a barrier as rural incomes lag statewide averages, and many areas are effectively served by a single wireline provider, limiting price competition. The sunset of major federal affordability programs has left a gap for low and moderate income households, even as online participation has become essential for work, education, health, and civic life. Public Wi-Fi is sparse because many rural towns have few libraries or civic facilities, and limited resources to equip those they do have, leaving residents without reliable places to connect when home access is unaffordable or unreliable. Mobile service remains uneven. The 2019 Rural Policy Plan highlighted the lack of reliable cell coverage and called for a comprehensive assessment of rural service gaps. Since then, state agencies have begun mapping gaps and exploring options to improve coverage, but many rural residents, visitors, and businesses still encounter no service zones, dropped calls, and weak mobile data. Older zoning bylaws that were adopted decades ago to limit or discourage cell towers as visual blights now constrain infrastructure expansion and must be revisited to balance aesthetic concerns with current safety and economic needs. In an era when emergency communication, navigation, and basic commerce assume mobile connectivity, the lack of dependable coverage has become a deterrent to residents and businesses considering rural locations, and a growing liability for tourism-dependent communities. At the same time, rural municipalities and institutions are increasingly exposed to cybersecurity and IT risks without commensurate capacity. The Commonwealth has strengthened its overall cybersecurity posture through the creation of the Mass Cyber Center and CyberTrust Massachusetts, expansion of the Community Compact IT grant program, and continued build-out of the COMERS emergency communications system into rural regions. Yet many small towns still have no dedicated IT staff, rely on part-time vendors, and lack the funding and expertise to implement basic security controls, user training, and incident response plans, even as they digitize financial, public safety, and permitting systems. Cybersecurity is rarely viewed as critical infrastructure on par with roads, water, or schools, leaving rural governments disproportionately vulnerable to ransomware, data loss, and service disruptions that they are ill-equipped to manage. Finally, rural communities are being asked to navigate a rapidly changing technology landscape that includes AI, cloud computing, and large data centers with limited staff and planning capacity. AI-enabled tools and data sharing requirements are beginning to shape how local governments, schools, health systems, and employers operate, while at the same time there is concern that rural areas, with relatively inexpensive land, constrained oversight capacity, and limited bargaining power, could become default locations for energy and water-intensive data centers. Most rural bylaws and comprehensive plans do not yet address the siting and regulation of data-intensive facilities, or provide guidance on responsible municipal use of AI, leaving towns reactive rather than proactive as proposals and tools emerge. Without deliberate support for planning, governance, and community engagement, there is a risk that new technologies will deepen existing inequities, benefiting well-resourced organizations and regions, while rural communities shoulder disproportionate environmental, fiscal, or security risks and struggle to realize the potential of the digital transition. A significant portion of the federal broadband and digital equity funding allocated to Massachusetts under the American Rescue Plan Act must be expended by the end of 2026. The National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or NTIA, enacted substantial changes to the BEAD program administered in 2025 that included eliminating the fiber preference in favor of a technology-neutral approach. NTIA has yet to issue a policy notice for the remaining BEAD funding that is not committed to deployment projects. In Massachusetts, this amounts to more than $100 million. The following recommendations are high-level. Many of the recommendations in each chapter of the plan include sub-recommendations that speak to specific strategies and tactics regarding how the high-level recommendation could be implemented. We strongly encourage you to review the PDF of the full recommendations for this chapter at the same URL through which you accessed this video. The URL is also cited at the top of these slides. The recommendations are: 1. Complete universal broadband access and advanced digital equity in rural communities. 2. Improve rural mobile coverage and integrate communications into core infrastructure planning. 3. Treat cybersecurity and municipal IT capacity as critical rural infrastructure. 4. Align emerging technologies, including AI, with rural capacity, equity, and local control. And lastly, 5. Plan proactively for data-intensive infrastructure, including large data centers. These are the high-level recommendations for this chapter. Again, when we meet for our feedback session, what we hope to learn from you is: does the summary of this chapter's challenges, successes, and achievements feel right and representative of your community? Which of these recommendations would make the biggest difference in your community? And what's missing? Thanks again for taking the time to review this chapter, and we look forward to speaking with you live soon. In the interim, if you have questions or concerns, please direct them to Mark Maloney, Communications Manager with the Franklin Regional Council of Governments. Thanks again, and take care.